Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we're going to be looking at Cirque's new Vice collection for 2023. I'm super excited about this. If you aren't familiar, Cirque does their Vice collection every year around May, and it's just this neon collection. And I feel like it's their most anticipated collection every year. So as usual, I will save my thoughts after comparisons. For now, let's get into the swatches. So the first polish we have is Hedonist, and this is a true primary neon yellow. So this is the first of the three returning Vice shades. This one I believe came out in 2020. I might be wrong about that though. And I am honestly so happy about it because I voted for this one. So I'm happy to see it brought back. So here on the first coat, as kind of expected with a yellow, it's a little bit streaky, not the best coverage, but it does have really great pigmentation. So on the second coat, I think it did look a lot better, but I could still see some lighter spots here and there. But I do think if your nails were a lot shorter than mine, where you have very little to no free edge, you might be able to get away with just 2 coats. But I did end up doing a third for this shade since it is just a little bit lighter than the other ones. So once I did a third coat, I feel like it was fully opaque and I am just so obsessed with it. I love bright, sunshiny yellows like this. And this one is perfect. It's like a true neon yellow. The next shade voted back in was C.R.E.A.M, and this one is described as a neon pastel lime green. So if you are familiar with me and my favorites videos, you know that I love a good lime green in the summertime, and I am 97% sure that I voted for this one to come back too, so I'm happy about this one. Formula-wise, this one had a pretty similar formula to Hedonist, where it was a little streaky on the first coat, but I did end up getting full and even coverage on the second coat. Overall, the Vice shades are very creamy, not streaky or thin or anything like that, so they're very easy to work with, and they just have such great color payoff for not having a white base under. And the last returning shade we have is Game Over, and this one is a true neon red. So this one I believe was from 2019, and I also voted for this one to come back because I just needed this neon red. I feel like it is just such an intense shade that everybody needs to have in their collection, including myself. So I voted for it to come back. So this one definitely had the most even coverage out of all of the shades so far, but I definitely could still see through to my nail line. So it had an almost crelly consistency, but once I did a second coat, it just covered it right up. So it looked very opaque and not like a crelly or jelly finish at all. So yeah, I am just obsessed with this shade. I know some people might be upset that Pyro didn't make the cut, which was from last year's collection, and that one is a little bit more orange leaning, but Game Over, you need this. Like, this is an insane color to be wearing. And now moving on to the new colors, we actually have some neon pastels, starting with Rumor Mill. And this one is described as a neon coral. So I feel like maybe it's picking up a little bit more orange than it is, but honestly, at the same time, it's very color accurate. So it's just kind of one of those intense, corally, peachy, with maybe a little bit of pink undertones kind of shades, which I really love for summer. So even though this is a pastel neon and a little bit different than what most people might have been expecting for Vice, I still am such a huge fan. Formula-wise, this one had another really buttery smooth, creamy formula where I personally got it opaque in 2 coats. And yeah, I am just a fan of this shade. I think it's so cute for summer. Next up, we have Klepto, and this one is described as a neon digital lavender. So what blew me away about this polish was the formula. For whatever reason, this one had the most creamy, buttery, opaque formula, where I honestly would wear this in one coat, even with longer nails. I think maybe if you did a little bit of a thinner coat, you might see some patchiness, but since I'm heavy-handed, I was like, this is added to my pile of polishes that I can turn to if I need a quick last-minute mani. But I still ended up doing a second coat just to show you how that looks, built up a little bit more. And yeah, I just was so blown away by the formula. The color, however, didn't really wow me. I think it is a really cute shade of purple, but it's not really giving me neon. To me, it honestly just feels like a very bright pastel. And last but certainly not least, we have my personal favorite, Shopaholic. This one is described as a neon highlighter pink, and it is freaking perfect. I am so obsessed with this shade. I mean, as a certified pink lover, this is a must-have, and I cannot stress that enough. It is just absolute perfection. Formula-wise, it had a really great formula, actually. On the first coat, I feel like it was very even coverage, not as patchy or streaky like Hedonist or C.R.E.A.M, just some of the lighter shades were. And this one built up perfectly for me in 2 coats. But again, just the disclaimer, I am a little heavier handed, so if you do thinner coats, you might need a third for some of these shades, but overall these feel very creamy and opaque. So I do think most people, especially with shorter nails, can get away with these shades in just 2 coats. And here is the collection all together, looking super cute, bright, and colorful. But I did want to mention, as you probably noticed, the Vice collection does come with a wide brush, which we are obviously a big fan of, but even more exciting, every launch moving forward is going to include the wide brush. Oh my God, can you believe it? I am so excited about this. So yeah, I just forgot to mention it in my outro somehow, so I needed to mention it here. And also launching alongside the Vice collection, we have the Vice ready-to-wear nail art stickers. And this is a collection of abstract, graphic, and pop art inspired stickers. So there's a bunch of stars and crowns and lightning bolts and just, you know, little graphics, if you will, in a variety of finishes, just from regular color ones to some gold metallic, and some of them are even a silver holographic. So I thought that was cool to introduce a few different finishes to them. But yeah, these are super fun, cute, but again, mainly 2 of each, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but they're still cute at the end of the day. Now moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Hedonist and obviously comparing it to Nirvana, which is the bright primary yellow that launched earlier this year. And these definitely look really similar in the bottle. You might be able to tell that Nirvana is a little bit darker, but you'll be able to tell the difference on the nail. But I also wanted to show this next to Holo Taco's Banana Medicine from their recent Pastel and Don't Tell collection, because this was a really bright pastel yellow. But yeah, on the nail, these do not compare at all. So you can see Nirvana looks almost muddy. I mean, it's very much like a goldenrod kind of shade. And Banana Medicine just looks a lot more pastel, so Hedonist is definitely a true neon yellow. Like, that is definitely a very accurate description. And here's a quick comparison next to Electric Daisy, which is Cirque's very popular highlighter yellow type of shade. But yeah, you could definitely see these are not dupes. So the closer comparison would obviously be with C.R.E.A.M and Electric Daisy. And while they aren't dupes, they definitely have a similar vibe as far as being a very bright, intense lime kind of shade. So I also wanted to show Cream next to Thirsty, which is again from 2020, and I do think my bottle faded a little bit. It just doesn't look as bright as it used to be, or as neon, rather it's just a little bit more muted. But even if it was very bright and intense, it's still a wildly different tone of green compared to Cream and Electric Daisy, which leans even more yellow. So yeah, on the nail you can see Electric Daisy might be kind of similar, but it's a little bit brighter and more yellow, so still not dupes. Moving on to Klepto, I have China Glazes Here for the Candy, which was also from the recent collection that I reviewed. And this one is just such a bright orchid pink purple kind of shade, so I thought it would be kind of similar. And even more similar, I thought, at least in the bottle, was Mooncat's Euphoric, which is another shade that's kind of described as an orchid pink, but I feel like it leans a little purple here. But on the nail, these are wildly different. Like, they are nothing alike. So yeah, you can see just how intense and bright Here for the Candy is, which is why I called it a bleached neon. And Klepto just doesn't really give me that same kind of vibe. It's just a very bright purple, you know? So I have a couple more comparisons, including Olive Ave's Rhododendron, which again, in the bottle, I feel like they look really similar. Maybe Rhododendron's a little darker and maybe a little bit more pink than purple, but just wait. And here is Holo Taco's Serial Killer, which is another very bright pastel purple that isn't described as a neon, but I still was impressed with how bright it was. But this is more of a blue leaning purple, and Klepto is more of that reddish pink leaning. But yeah, on the nail, these are just wildly different. They are nowhere near being dupes. Rhododendron just, I guess, dries down a lot darker because in the background the bottles still look pretty similar, but on the nail they look super different. And yeah, Serial Killer is also just a different tone altogether. And lastly, I have a couple bottle comparisons, starting with Mooncat's Insomniac, which is kind of similar to Serial Killer as far as being a blue-toned purple, but this one's a little bit darker, so not similar. And here it is next to Mooncat's Lost Polaroids, which is a very intense, bright, red-leaning purple that's like borderline between pink and purple, but this one is a lot darker. And I want to say almost a little brighter too. And lastly, for Shopaholic, I tragically have a sad comparison to Valley of the Dolls because this one just faded over time for whatever reason, even though I store them in Helmer's. It's just really sad. But I did notice when I opened the bottle, there still was some of the dried polish on the neck of the bottle, and it looks kind of similar. Here's also a reference photo so you can see the original color, but I don't think they would be exact dupes. But yeah, it's hard to say. And here is Kid in a Candy Store from China Glaze, and these definitely look a lot more similar in the bottle. I thought that they might be pretty good dupes. And on the nail, I guess it's up to you to decide. I definitely wouldn't call them dupes because they are not one-to-one replacements of each other. I would say that the China Glaze shade is a little bit lighter, so if you're in the market for only having one neon pink and you already have the China Glaze one, I guess you don't need Shopaholic. But again, as a certified pink lover, you need both. So my last comparison to Shopaholic is Dimension Nails Pink Manta Ray from that same neon collection last summer. That whole collection was just chef's kiss in general. And these definitely don't compare. They might look a little similar in the bottle, but on the nail, Pink Manta Ray is just more of a darker, kind of true hot pink sort of shade, and Shopaholic is definitely that neon highlighter pink. So both of these are super cute though, and I absolutely love them. So I'm curious to know what you think. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Cirque's new Vice collection. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on this highly anticipated release, especially if you voted for these shades to come back like I did.
because yeah, I'm obviously a big fan of the lineup, but I will say I was a little disappointed when I first saw the lineup because I was like, oh my God, there's no blue. Like, and I love blue in the summer, especially a really bright aqua teal kind of blue. And I don't remember which one I voted for. I know Miami-Dade was in there, but then there was another one that was like a little bit more teal, I think. And so I think I voted for that one. But the only one that I am kind of disappointed in is Klepto. I mean, obviously I think it is a really pretty shade of purple and it has the best formula out of this whole lineup for sure. But it's just not really giving Vice for me. And even though it's supposed to be one of the new pastel neons, it's just not neon enough for me. So I almost wish we would have gotten one instead of Klepto, but obviously at that point, 4 out of the 6 shades would be old returning ones, and then there's only 2 new ones. So I understand having the balance of literally like half of the collection is old, half is new. So I get it, but yeah, you'll have to let me know which shades you voted for and just what you think of this collection, because overall I do really love it and I think it's just gonna be super fun for this summer. So I'm very excited about them, but I would love to hear any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.